All right, all right. Let's see. All right. What's up, guys? Give it a few seconds here. Get some people on. So if you're not sure what we're doing, we are every single day this week. One of the coaches, we're going to send out a link. You might have just seen it in the Facebook page. We're going to send out a link for you guys to fill out a very simple survey. Each survey is you can ask up to 3 questions about a coach. You can leave your name anonymous if you want. You can put your name, it's up to you. And then the coach has to read his answers live, preferably without watching or looking ahead. So I haven't even looked at, I just seen the first one because I just pulled it up, but I haven't looked at any of the questions. So I figured we've been asking a lot of random questions about you guys and getting to know you guys. So we figured we'll turn the tables a little bit, if you will, and let you ask some questions about us. So I'll jump into it. What's up, Donna? What's up, guys? I put out a survey yesterday via an email about you can ask me 3 questions, any 3 questions you want. It can be health and fitness related. It can be whatever you want related. And I will answer as long as they're, for the most part, acceptable in terms of not like dirty or anything like that. So I'm going to jump into it. And tomorrow's Justin. So if you haven't seen that, Justin, I see you're on here. You're getting called out next. So you guys can always ask Justin whatever you want. Remember, you guys can keep it anonymous too if you want. So first question somebody asked me was, what made you want to start Raw Fitness? And that is a really good question. I was wondering if I was going to get something along those lines. So I won't take up too much time in terms of like the full back end story of why I started Raw Fitness, in terms of like what led me into health and fitness. But to keep it shorter, I went through a very kind of dark time in my life. I was just very depressed. I was in a very bad state. Was going through a lot of different things in my life. Where I came to an event where I was kind of forced to. Hello, Marge. I was kind of forced to make it some type of change or keep doing what I was doing, which was not getting me anywhere in life. And I was still pretty young. And I was extremely unhappy. I was extremely depressed, very unhealthy, believe it or not. Was making a lot of poor decisions, things like that. I sat back and I said, I can't keep doing this. I have to make a change. What is it? Like, when was I happy last? And it was sports. I used to play sports a lot when I was younger, and I just fell away from it. So I was like, what, I'm gonna play college basketball. That's what I want to do. And so I started working out, doing all these different things. I didn't know what I was doing. I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I thought it was healthy after workouts. And mind you, this was a long time ago. But so I started doing that, and I was just working really hard at getting out of that depression or that dark place I was in at that time. And if you're just jumping on, we're doing a coaching question this week on, you get to ask coaches anything. And somebody asked me what made me start Raw Fitness. So coming out of that dark place that I was in, I was very depressed. What helped me get out of it was I was like, when was the last time I was happy? I started praying a lot, actually. I was searching for answers, and it was sports. I was like, I used to love playing sports with my uncles, my cousins, and all that when I was younger. So I was like, I'm gonna try to play college basketball. So I started working out, and I started like emailing all these like college coaches, like Tom Izzo, if you guys know coaches, like Michigan State's coach, like Michigan's coach. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I just want to do it, and I started working out, and I found Rochester College actually gave me an opportunity to come try out, and I started like working out and all that, and I actually made their team. So I got accepted there. I went to the school there, and I started finding myself loving the training and the becoming a better version of myself mentally and physically, as much as I did the sports itself. So I really think basketball was just a vessel for me to learn more about this aspect of life when it comes to health and wellness, and how it relates specifically to not just the physical part, but the mindset part. That was huge for me to get out of that depressed state, is cleaning up my diet, exercising more, practicing some mindfulness practices and mindset stuff, which you probably have heard me talk a lot about, and you probably hear the passion when I talk about it. That's because I'm very passionate about it, because it was very important in my life. So I started doing all that, and I started looking into like, well, what can I do with this, passion that I have? And I started, taking courses in school and, different certifications. And, I became a personal trainer, started doing that on the side while I was going to school and playing basketball, while also, working for my father-in-law too, just kind of trying to mix it all together. And so I developed an extreme passion for it. I started doing it in the community, in the area, started working with a lot of people. And because I had such a passion for it, and I wanted to help so many people not feel the way that I felt, and pass on some of the knowledge and passion that helped me get out of that state, it kind of morphed itself into raw fitness down the line after I was training and working at different gyms and practicing what I preach and doing things there. And I decided to take the risk and start to open our own place. So Raw Fitness is not a chain, it's not a franchise, it is just us. I think there's other Raw Fitnesses in the world, but nothing to do with us. So that's kind of to answer the first question, is how I ended up with opening Raw Fitness or starting Raw Fitness. Is I was in a very dark place. Sports led me, or kind of helped me get out of that a little bit, or finding myself, which led me to training for the sport. Basketball is what it was. And I developed a health and wellness aspect, in order to be able to do that. And that led me to passion, to getting out of my depressed state and becoming healthier mentally and physically. And that, I developed a lot of passion based on that, and being in that depressed state, that it led me to wanting to pass that knowledge and help other people not feel the way that I was feeling, because I can resonate with that and know how that felt. That's why I opened Raw Fitness. That's why the logo is what it is. It's if you're familiar with it, it's the ancient Tai Chi symbol, yin and yang, if you will. Understanding balance, right? I didn't have a lot of balance in my life, and that's what led me to the passion of why I have a lot of balance now, or I did. Now work-life balance still needs a little bit of improvement, because I still work a lot, but it's getting there. I know the importance parts of it. So that's why I created the logo of what it is. That's why I created Raw Fitness, is to help others get out of that depressed state. So it's not even so much just to lose body fat or this or that. It's to help people live a healthier and happier lifestyle, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we try to have fun. That's why we're letting you ask us random questions. So that's number one. That was a long time answering number one. And again, I haven't read any of these beforehand, so I'm just now looking at these questions. If you're just jumping on, this is the every day this week, we're going to send out a link where you can ask your coaches anything. Today's my day. When did you coach at Henry Ford 2? Trying to figure out if it was while I was working there. I don't know who asked that. Maybe Gloria, maybe Lisa. Anyway, so when did I coach at Henry Ford? I coached there for 3 years. I coached basketball, and it was the 2015 season was my last year, so it would have been 2013, 14, and 2015. And it's kind of hard for me to see who exactly asked that, but I coached basketball at Henry Ford in 2013 to 2015 is when I was there. So let me know if you're watching, if you were there at that time. So Danny, I know you have been too frequent. Jander's frozen custard. But what other guilty pleasures do you partake in? Could you be food related and or other? So great question. Guilty pleasures that I partake in. Obviously frozen custard because you saw me there. I definitely know who answered or whose question that is. I mean, I like custard. I partake in a lot of different stuff. So I know I discuss health and wellness and all that. But the same reason why I created the logo to be that Tai Chi symbol of balance is it's all about balance in life, in the world, and when it comes to health and wellness. And I'm not extremely strict, but my clean eating is usually pretty good and pretty consistent to where these little, special treats aren't going to hurt me as much. And luckily, I started with the health and wellness aspect at a younger age, getting out of this depressed state and all that. That I never really went through the like trials and tribulations of like really really bad diets and things like that kind of screw with your internal body. So I'm blessed in that aspect of it. But guilty pleasures, like I love pizza. Cheesecake for sure is my weakness. Cake in general is my weakness, I would say. I don't have it a ton. I love chocolate, love wine. I love Cabernet. I love IPA alcohol. I know one of our daily questions the other week before one of the workouts was, "What's your favorite alcohol?" Or I think is what it was, and I listed a couple of them on there. So I definitely will have custard sometimes, cake, pizza definitely. I would say cheesecake for sure. Any type of like cake, muffin substance is my weakness for sure. So I definitely partake in them. Now, how often do I? Yeah, maybe once or twice a week, on average. I usually eat pretty well throughout the week. Occasionally, I might have something, after dinner or whatever, but I generally will let Saturday night and or Sunday morning be kind of like my guilty pleasure where I don't really stress about what I'm eating as much. It's funny though, being in line with health and wellness and all that, you go out to a restaurant and you're like the burger sounds really good, but I should probably get a chicken breast in case I see somebody here, right? So you're kind of looking over your shoulder when you're doing all this. So it's kind of funny. So those are some of the guilty pleasures that I do. And I'm sure there's plenty others. Like I said, I like chocolate too. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? All these things on ice cream. So I'm pretty plain, and this isn't a grasp at, I'm healthy. I don't like all of the super fruity and bam of certain flavors when it comes to my ice cream. So the question, if I didn't say it, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream? It's probably vanilla and chocolate. I'm pretty basic. I like strawberry too. However, will do an occasional a Moose Tracks type things. I told you I liked chocolate too. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Crooked Creek over at Ebbling Road-ish off Armada Center, I think it is. They make their own ice cream there with their own milk, and they have a good, I think they call it Cow Tracks instead of Moose Tracks or whatever. So I would say that's probably my favorite, but I'm pretty basic. I'm pretty, you need to try Tonight Dough, Ben & Jerry's. See, I don't like the Ben & Jerry's. That's too much for me. It's too much. Even the cheesecakes, I mentioned in the last question, I just like it simple and plain. I like the flavor there. We would never judge if you see it at a restaurant. I know you wouldn't. And I do. And that's, I don't beat myself up too much over it, Stephanie, but it's still funny. Every time I'm looking at the menu, I'm not even so much just the health aspect of it. I'm I really gotta hold this image of myself to the standards, if you will, but I know you guys wouldn't care. Next question. What was the moment that made you change your life? So that's kind of the question a little bit before what I got into before. And I will share. I'm always reluctant sharing, just because I'm a little still insecure of it in terms of perception of self. So when I was a teenager, mainly, up until about like 19, as I mentioned, I made a lot of poor decisions. I was actually I was getting into trouble a lot. I turned football and basketball down for partying, if you will, and drinking and smoking weed and different things there, and smoking cigarettes. I actually smoked cigarettes for about 8 years when I was younger. I started very young, and just making a lot of bad decisions. I actually, believe it or not, this is very personal, and I don't always like sharing this, but I want to open myself up to you guys. Part of why we were doing this is I actually started getting in trouble. I stopped going to school. I actually did drop out of high school at one point. I started getting in trouble with the police, and there was a few different times that I did. And the last time was kind of the breaking point where I was, looking at getting in a lot of trouble. And I don't know if the judge or what have you saw something in me, or it was God at work, or whatever you want to say with it. But he decided to give me another chance, and kind of made that known. And going through a lot of that stuff, it really puts things in perspective, and it made me really, as I mentioned in the first question of how I started Raw Fitness, is I came to a point where it was inevitable that I had to either make a change or continue down the path that I was going. And luckily, I kind of through prayer, to be honest, I didn't pray for a long time before that. And I did, and I said, like, give me a sign or let me know, like, what do I need to be doing. And I actually still remember it to the day. Before I was going to court through all this, I went outside. It was the middle of February, and I sat in the snow in just shorts and just bawled my eyes out in the middle of the snow. And it was then I remember it very vividly that I was like, I need to stop this. So I remember the last cigarette I smoked. I remember all of that. Actually went back and got my GED, so I actually didn't graduate from high school. I got a GED. So I've talked to actually some parents here that are like worried of their kids like slacking off in school and all that, and hopefully my story can be alleviated a little bit. Not that like you have to go through some terrible things in order to get to where you want to, but I think knowing that just because people make bad decisions or aren't passionate at certain times in life or what have you, doesn't mean that they're doomed. Sometimes you just need to find that right trigger and that passion to help you overcome. And I've been through quite a bit in my life that I've had to, overcome certain things. And that was one of them. And, for some people that do know the story, they ask me if that's something, I regret or what have you. And it's definitely not. I full-heartedly like that. I went through all that stuff, and it really made me who I am today. It made me as passionate as I am about health and wellness and mindset and improving yourself daily. And I'm almost addicted to that part of it, and I wouldn't have that passion for becoming better and helping others become better if I didn't go through some of that stuff. So I think it was necessary. So sorry if I offend anyone with that story, or some people don't like it, but hopefully you can appreciate that we all go through struggles and we all make bad decisions sometimes, and sometimes you guys can appreciate that. So that was the moment that made me change my life. It was very important to me, and I'm glad I went through it. Any meaning behind my tattoos? That's the next question. Yes. So all of my tattoos are, for the most part, either related to that story or they are family related, if you will. So I'll even show you. We're making it personal. So I have This one right here, it's a Pepsi symbol. It has my Aunt Wendy's name on it. She died of cancer when I was young. She was essentially our neighbor. We spent a lot of time with her and her family. Growing up, she always drank Pepsi. And she just was an important part of my life. And I always kind of wanted to honor her with that. Stira and Sukha. I have Stira. My wife Christy has Sukha. Essentially, in Hindu, it's kind of the Tai Chi symbol. It's balance. This is more of the yang, or more of the male energy, or more of fire expressing out. Whereas Sukha is more the motherly, or the woman energy, the more nurturing aspect of things, where we kind of balance each other out with that. Here is actually Medusa with a star, and that's actually on the Sicilian flag. My family is Sicilian. They're also Irish. That one's the Irish one. So there's my family ties. On my back, I actually have the skyline across my chest, the Detroit skyline, with kind of a sun overcoming the top of it, but the sun is actually the Uniroyal tire off I-94. Just to kind of represent like where I came from, where I spent a lot of my time growing up. And the last one, I think that's my last one. Oops. Well, let me rotate. Is actually probably one of my favorite ones. It's a rose. If you can't see it, it's a rose growing from concrete. So I don't know if you ever heard the poem, but it talks about a people kind of like stepping over a rose, or a rose, that's, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you're like, man, and the rose like is just randomly growing out from a concrete slit. Like there's a little slit in the concrete, and all of a sudden a rose grew out of it. You wouldn't sit there and say like, oh my gosh, look at those petals. Like they're so terrible. Like they're all beaten up, or why is it withering over a little bit? Like, why is it a little discolored? You wouldn't say that. You'd be amazed at like, wow, how can a rose grow from that situation? That beautiful thing grow from such a terrible growing situation. And that's pretty much the story that I just told you of, part of my journey coming out of what I came out of. And I kind of relate it to that. That poem made me think of it a lot, growing up, in terms of growing up to be the better version of myself that I am now, coming from the situations that I came from when I was younger. It's kind of a memory of where I came from, what I went through, and knowing that even if I'm not perfect now, or whatever it is, like, we can get through any obstacle that kind of comes our way. So those are my tattoos and the meaning of those. So that's a good question. And I have other ideas for tattoos. I just haven't done them. Greatest fear. That's a really good one. So my greatest like physical fear is heights. I'm terrified with heights. I always do heights. Like I still go on like roller coasters, all that. I'm just deathly afraid when I'm doing it. Even like water slides, where I'm, where you're walking up the stairs and it's like moving a little bit, like those freak me out the most probably. So like, I'm like, don't touch me, anything. But my greatest fear is probably for sure. So I'm very big on like analyzing myself. It's part of this whole process that I've been talking about really, is probably success, as weird as that sounds. So I grew up, we didn't really have a ton of money and all that. We grew up in a low-income type house with a lot of us in one house. And I don't think we had the understanding of like success when it terms like financial or career or what have you, in a certain perspective. And I think because of the people that I was around in the low-income area, we're always like putting things in your head of like, oh, these people have money, they're bad, or this or that. So I think I had that stigma at a young age that it was part of my belief system. And it wasn't till as I started getting older and meeting people and different there, I was like, obviously I knew it wasn't accurate, but like you really see like this is just a belief system that you have to overcome. And I think that's something I've really struggled with. So over the last 10 plus years that I've been trying to like better myself, that's probably the biggest thing that I've been trying to overcome is my self-doubting, limiting beliefs of like, what would I be, or what would people perceive of me if I was successful, right? Because I had such this belief system of like successful people, like, oh, shame them, they should, you know, give money to the poor or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, when that's not, the people that are wealthy are very, very hardworking and they deserve it, you know? So it's a great question, but I definitely would say my biggest fear outside of heights is probably my like success, my limiting self-doubt beliefs, that I have to overcome is definitely a big one that I struggle with. So very good question. Do you ever want to really get in someone's face because you know they can do more or work harder and they don't? Very good question. So I definitely I definitely do. Yeah, it's so I think because of some of the things that I've done or been through or went through that we've been talking about the last 20 minutes or whatever on this live session of things that I've done, like it helps put things in perspective of like, okay, this is silly, this is dumb, like this is something that we can do and work through. So there's definitely times where you can want to get in someone's face, if you will, like the question asked, to work harder, and they, because they don't. But it's not so much because I think the person's lazy or whatever it is. It's right in line with what we've been talking about. It's because I have such a passion for overcoming some of these self-limiting beliefs that I've had or dealt with or trying to overcome, that like I get very frustrated when I see people in that same boat trying to get out of it, right? Because it's a reflection of myself being stuck there as well, that I get very frustrated with that. So it's not so much necessarily just the individual, but more so that I understand what they're going through, and I just want them to fight, give it everything they got, be that rose growing from concrete, if you will. If you listened a couple minutes ago about my tattoo and what that means. So what motivates you to keep evolving both personally and professionally? I think I've answered that already. I have a deep, 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 extreme desire to become better every single day in any facet. So whether it's, becoming better with relationships, or becoming better in business, or better in coaching, or better as a manager, or whatever aspect, or basketball, or whatever it is, I have a deep, deep, deep desire to improve. And I think it stems from, if you've been on this live meeting, I've talked about it, but my past and my story of why I am where I'm at now and what I went through. It was such a dark place that I never, ever, ever want to go back to that. And so I think my drive is stemming from that. And I mean, professionally, evolving, I mean, a lot of it too comes down to just your core values, right? Like what are your standards in your life, and to me, it's just unacceptable not to put forth effort, right? So no matter what I do, even if I'm not good at it, or I'm not sure I'm going to succeed, I'm going to put forth effort at least. And it strives from, I believe, from the kind of some of the things I've done in the past. So, or things I've come through or overcame in my past. Last couple here. What started your fitness journey? Again, I've kind of answered that one. But I was in a very dark place. I was very depressed, very unhealthy, making a lot of poor decisions, getting in trouble, and it the last time I got in trouble actually forced me to make a decision, and luckily I chose to change my life around. And I try to think back of when was the last time I was healthy or happy, and it was when I was playing sports. I started like working out for sports and saying I was, I'm going to try to play college basketball. And luckily a team gave me an opportunity to try out, and I made it. And I, over the years of training for basketball, I enjoyed the training, improving myself just as much as I did the basketball, and that led me into health and fitness and mindset and all that. And I just developed such a big passion for it because it helped me get out of the depressed state that I was in, that I developed that passion not only for me improving myself, but also helping pass that knowledge on to others. Guilty indulgences. I did already answer that one too, but love cake type products. But I definitely love cheesecakes. I love chocolate. It's funny, Easter I used to love because I used to love like Starburst jelly beans when I was a kid. Reese's was huge. I love pasta. I don't think I said that earlier. Love, 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 love pasta. Manicotti is probably my favorite. I love lasagna. Pizza. Wine. I love Cabernet. I love Merlot. I love IPA beer. So I trust me, just because I preach health doesn't mean I don't indulge as well. But I have good balance when it comes to it. I think I missed. Oh, I got a couple more. All right, guys. Favorite hobby, definitely basketball and golf, hands down. And I love to read. Actually, lately I haven't been reading as much more. I do more audibles than read. I know it's so quiet here. My son's sleeping, and my wife is actually putting my daughter to bed right now. That's why I start like talking loud and then I get quieter. But my favorite hobby is golf and basketball, hands down, and I love to read or learn. Love to learn, love to learn, love to learn. If you were given an elephant and had to keep it, what would you do with it? Wow, that's a weird question. If I had to keep it, what would I do with it? I mean, first I would let my kids ride it. My daughter would absolutely love that. Then after that, I guess I would start making him train fitness, right? You'd start exercising, you'd start doing stuff. I wouldn't let it just sit around on the couch, right? Other than that, I don't know what I would do. I mean, I love animals, so I definitely wouldn't like try to like get it in the circus or anything like that. I think that's a little cruel. What kind of music do you listen to? So I love music is huge for me. So music, if I'm in a really bad mood, is always my go-to. I don't want to make this a cop-out answer, but I listen to a lot. So I listen to some rock. I listen to alternative rock. I listen to country sometimes, depending on my mood. I listen to rap. I listen to R&B. I listen to reggae a lot. Actually, my wife and I love Bob Marley. I just love his message. I love it. Just the music makes you feel good. And then Christy really likes like bands like 311 and stuff like that, and I like those. I don't really know what that's considered, but I like that. So I'm kind of a mix of a lot of things when it comes to music. I would say the biggest thing, it depends on my mood. Whatever I'm trying to do. If I'm training like real hard, I might listen to some heavy rock or rap. Same thing if like I'm in a bad mood. If I'm like sad or something, maybe like R&B or country, something like that. What's my favorite exercise? Turkish get-ups and deadlifts for sure. What's your greatest motivator? My greatest motivator is for sure myself. It's kind of like what we've been talking about this whole time is my greatest motivator is just not wanting to go back to that dark place that I was, and just developing a deep drive, whether it's my core values now or standards in life, of just like, if I'm going to do something, I have to give it absolutely everything. And if I don't, it just doesn't make sense to do. So that's for sure my biggest motivator, is probably my core values and my standards of living. And that was just something I created over time, or probably more out of a necessity if you've been listening to my story the last 30 minutes. But that's definitely my biggest motivator there. How often do you cheat meal that includes lots of alcohol? So I rarely drink, I rarely go overboard with alcohol. Usually it's like 2 drinks. Maybe I'll have a third. And I don't drink Monday through Thursday. Again, just a standard of living that I put in place. Now during this thing, I've this crazy crap that's been going on. I've had maybe a couple on the weekdays, but generally I only will Friday or Saturday, and I'll probably have like 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday at the most. Unless my golf trip, that's a little different story. I've gotten a little out of hand drinking those days, but generally nothing too crazy. How often do I have a cheat meal? In general, I think I mentioned earlier, probably 2 times a week or so. Then I eat pretty clean. Most of the time my breakfasts are very clean, except for Sunday morning. Sometimes aren't always. lunches are usually always pretty clean. It's usually like a weekend dinner or two or whatever is where I cheat. But lots of alcohol, rarely do I. But I'm not really all that social. Like the only thing I really do is work and hang out with my family. So I'm not really ever often in those situations to drink a ton, I guess. Um, let's see. I got two more here. I have always, oh, maybe I got a couple more than that. I've always admired your will, power, and determination, especially since I struggle with it so much. Is that something you have always had, or is it something you have intentionally worked on to develop over time? Very good question. I've kind of hit on it a little bit. That is definitely not something I had over time, all my life. But maybe you've heard me talk about it a lot, but I always talk about like, what are your standards of living, right? So like create new standards or core values for yourself. And that was something out of necessity that I had to do because of that dark place and the trouble I was getting into, that I had to make a decision that it just kind of forced me into it, I guess. But you can do it naturally too. But it's definitely something that I intentionally develop and work on. And it's essentially like, I knew in order to grow as a human being, which me personally, I think is one of the most important or things that we as human beings are meant to do, and that's grow as human beings, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, all that. And I think a part of that is, sorry, I'm getting a few messages here. I think a part of growing is you have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. So I go above and beyond to do things that are uncomfortable for myself. So if I go to like a seminar, I'll be the one to raise my hand first to like have them pick on me, just because I know you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable when it comes to bettering yourself. And I try to really live by that. So it's something I intentionally have worked on over time, of just like when it comes to things I don't want to do, I'll go and try to do them anyways. And that's developed into a skill. So if you guys have heard me talk about when it comes to, it's essentially just creating a skill set that you have to master over time, and then you develop these skills that equates to weight loss or wellness or positive attitude or whatever it is. But you have to create those skills or see what, because success leaves clues. So find out what those clues are, and start implementing them every single day. And it's not going to be easy. I fall off all the time, but it's all about getting back on. So just like I talked to you guys about with like healthy eating or workouts or whatever, it's the same concept in everything in life. If you're trying to better yourself and create that intentional willpower and determination, and behind all of that I just said, is you got to have a strong why. Your why has to be stronger than your why not. So your reason for doing has to be stronger than your reason not to do it. And sometimes you got to dig a little deep. I've mentioned already that like mine was kind of forced upon me by getting myself into trouble at a younger age, that I had to make the decision to better myself. And that's what helped me instill that I don't want to go back to that dark place and that life I was living. So you got to find out what yours is. And I encourage you to keep asking why you think that is. And you might even get a little emotional with it. Did you always want to own a gym, although Raw is more than a gym? No. When I was younger, I wanted to be a football player. Then I wanted to be a chef, actually. I wasn't really good at cooking or anything. I just wanted to be it, probably because I liked eating. Once I got into college and I started kind of like I've been talking about, enjoying some of these things, in terms of improving yourself, working out, eating well, and feeling better because of all that. It got me into like wanting to own some type of, it's never been. So here's the thing, fitness isn't like my passion. Believe it or not, it's improving oneself that is my passion. And I know fitness is part of that avenue. So it wasn't so much that I wanted to own a gym. It was that I wanted to own a lifestyle facility to help people become better individuals. Kind of as an avenue through fitness and eating well and mindset training and all that. So that was kind of what I wanted to do, and that's been, the last 10 years or so. So, it took me a few years building everything up and building the knowledge and skill set that I had before I decided to take the leap and just do it. Samir, I'll answer yours. Do you eat the same meals Monday through Thursday, or do you switch it up? I switch it up, so it's not like I follow like the meal plan concept. The meal plan concept is more just for ease and convenience. But I definitely switch it up. I would say breakfast for the most part. Most days out of the week I eat the same thing, and it's some variation of eggs and oatmeal usually. Lunch could be like a piece of meat, or with try to have vegetable, or like some type of wrap or salad. Dinner kind of varies. Usually always a protein. We try to always have a vegetable. It kind of varies. So no, it's not always the same. Monday through Thursday, it kind of varies. All right, I got my last couple. Unless you got any more, you can post here below. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or deceased, who would it be? Ooh, that is a really good question. I would love to have met Muhammad Ali in his prime. I love his confidence. He actually passed away the day my daughter was born, so I was watching that all night. John F. Kennedy, I would be very interested in having a dinner with. This is a great question. Who else would I want to have dinner with? That's a good question. I'll have to come back to that. I'm drawing a blank right now. Definitely those two, but I'm sure there's plenty more out there. Bob Marley, I mentioned him again. I think his not story, but his message was always fantastic, and I love that. It's all about love. Who do you admire or strive to be like? Good question. I would say I don't try to be like anyone. I try to just kind of be myself and be true to that as much as I can be, and that's not always 100%, but so I don't necessarily have a role model like, okay, this is who I want to act like, but because of this whole thing that we've been talking about, is I've kind of like watched how people that I thought were successful in life act, and I feel a lot of them act a certain way, and I feel a lot of it is the complete opposite of how I was talking about my limiting beliefs of like doubt or that lack or scarcity. Is a lot of them live in that abundance mindset of like kind of happy-go-lucky, like not really letting small things bother them, having fun with people, being more relationship-oriented. So I think there's some aspects, kind of how I mentioned success leaves clues. I think there's some aspect to that I try to do. But for the most part, it's just try to be true to who I am, and try to just become better at whatever it is that I'm trying to do every single day. So it's not necessarily a specific person though. What's your biggest regret? I would say it was so I mentioned earlier that I thought basketball was a stepping stone for me to learn more about health and wellness, and develop a passion for it. But I think my biggest regret that I have still sometimes is I had 3 knee surgeries in college, so I never really developed the confidence in my body when it came to basketball, that I had a ton of skill because I worked like a madman when it comes to developing my skill. You can ask Penny and Lynn and all them if they're on here, because I used to do it at Parks and Rec. Like I would spend hours and hours and hours, rain, sleet, snow, didn't matter, working on my craft, just like I do now with business or the fitness or all that. I played very timid at times because I didn't trust in my body, and I'm going against guys 6'7" that can do everything that I can do or play the same position I did. So I had that limiting self belief system that I was talking about earlier when it came to that I never when it came, when the lights were on, I never gave the full effort that I probably should have because I didn't believe that I could do it, mainly because of my knee, but also those limiting self-belief system that I had, or belief patterns. And that's definitely is a regret that I still have of, what could I have done with that? Because I had aspirations of trying to play in Europe and different things there with my buddy, and I'm glad I didn't, because it led me this path. But and I don't think it was my path to go down, but I wish I would have put more effort into my beliefs that I could have done it, and like left it all on the table instead of like playing timid because I didn't trust in my body or my knee or whatever. So that's definitely my biggest one. If you could have a real cheat day filled with anything you want all day, what would it be? Do not take calories, carbs, sugars, pretend the world has stopped turning, and today nothing. What would I have? So believe it or not, I do actually like a lot of healthy things, but I mentioned a little bit earlier, like I love pasta, so I'd have some type of pasta for dinner, probably like a lasagna or manicotti, something like that. I would have a cheesecake after for sure, probably with some wine. For breakfast, oh man, growing up I loved Pop-Tarts. I don't even know if I would like that anymore, actually. I haven't had it in forever. Cereal, I love cereal. Cinnamon rolls, I love cinnamon rolls when I was little. So probably something along those lines. Lunch, okay, you know what I always used to eat for lunches, and it sounds super gross, but it would probably be one of those like chicken pot pie things. Love those to death when I was younger, so I ate that a lot. So that would probably be my daily ritual right there, I guess. Where do you see the gym in the next 2 to 5 years? So this is our last question, but this is a very good one. So I'll be honest with you guys where we're at. So obviously we'll see, with where the world's going to be at in the next month or so. But if all things were equal, where do I see Raw Fitness at? Is I don't want to create a franchise. That's not really in my wheelhouse of something that I want to do. But I do want to be known for the best place in Metro Detroit to help people become their healthiest and happiest version of themselves through fitness and wellness. So I always kind of envision having maybe 2 or 3 locations in the greater Metro Detroit area. And I would love it if I could pass a lot of those on to our guys that we have now, if they would be interested in it. I've talked to them a little bit about it. But I would. That's kind of the extent of it. I don't ever really want to have Raw Fitnesses around the globe. Like that's not really necessarily my passion in terms of that. I want to help the greater Metro Detroit area to be healthier, be happier. A lot of us are deemed depressed and unhealthy and all that when people think of Detroit and Michigan. So I kind of want to be part of the change in that. And I've grown up my whole life around this area that I just want to be that striving force to better this community through health and wellness. And that's kind of where I see Raw Fitness at. So hopefully that answers all your guys' questions. There's quite a bit. Thank you for taking the time and filling that out. Hopefully I answered all your questions. If you got anything else, let me know. Post another comment below. I'll keep answering as I go. Hope you enjoyed it. Didn't necessarily anticipate going for 50 minutes though. You guys had a lot of good questions, and I felt I was okay with opening up to you guys and talking about it. So hope you enjoyed it.